Now this is the front right-hand brake disc and outer pad, okay, off this Commodore, and this is what happens when you have rotors that are extremely old, and they're actually genuine rotors. You know, they're all dirty, so you're probably not going to see that, but they are General Motors disc rotors, so you can actually maybe make out the GM logo there, or not, because it's all dirty. Anyway, when your pads get low, if your disc rotors are worn out, now these are actually worn to a taper. The outer edge there is more worn than the inner edge, okay? The inner edge is closer to 18, 19 mil, which is still, you know, it actually says 20 mil. You know, scrap thickness is 20 mil, okay? You need a micrometer to measure it, but if you've got a vernier, one will do as well. It'll give you an estimate anyway, and you'll be able to see whether it's worn out. Now the outer edge is actually worn closer to 16 mil. So it's really weird the way this disc rotor is worn, but it's not helped by incorrectly maintaining your brakes. And things like not sanding the contact points on the caliper bracket and putting anti-seizing paste so that the pads will actually slide properly in the bracket, and that helps a lot, you know. Also the use of cheap brake pads, but this is what it's done to the pad, right? That's the lining, that's where the lining ends, and you can see that polished bit on the edge where it's actually been rubbing on the side of the raised bit of this disc rotor. Now you probably can't see how worn that is, or maybe you can, but driving along, even without my foot on the brakes, it was actually polishing the edge of this rotor. You know, it's all wet, so you're not going to see it very well, but to give you an idea of what it normally would look like, this is just a normal rotor on the right that's worn out as well. It's its mate off the left front. You can see how this edge is kind of rusty and rough. This is all smooth. And that's why, because this pad's actually been rubbing on the edge. So the pad needs to be changed, but the pad, note the pad's actually worn on an angle too. It's less worn. I mean, actually, a bit hard to orient it the way it sits, but this surface, this outer bit of the pad, is actually slightly less worn than the inner bit because the disc rotor's on an angle. So that's something to watch as well as the thickness. Make sure the rotor isn't tapered, you know, like triangle shaped, if you like. You know, if you're not sure what the term tapered means, I'm not trying to be I don't mean to assume that everyone doesn't know what it means, but just in case you've never heard of the word, yeah, tapered disc rotors, I'd scrap them too. Like warped rotors, I mean, they're cheap to machine, but you know, it costs $118 for Brembo pads and DBA rotors, so I'm sure you can find a deal if you shop around. I don't really suggest machining disc rotors. I like throwing them out. By the time they need machining, they're generally not worth it. And if the disc is warped because it's been hot, it's generally going to warp again because you're taking thickness off it to machine it, right? Or to get it to the unwarped stage, or the you know, within tolerances, if you like. So, but just something to watch, you know. Make sure the disc rotor is not tapered, and change the pads before they get to that point, because they technically, now they've got 3 mil of lining on there at least, which is technically roadworthy, although a roadworthy tester won't pass this. You should replace your brake pads anyway. Yeah, and not use crap pads. Use decent pads, okay?